Welcome! Welcome! It's Germany, you know?
Yeah.
Welcome, pedal nerds, to Germany. Welcome, guys, you pedal nerds, YouTube pedal nerds. This is gonna be very uninteresting for you, but really a treat for me, because we're not gonna talk about pedals. This isn't even about guitar. This guy isn't even holding a bass. This is about talking to frickin', that's not in his passport, Lee Sklar, about what he does on a professional level and how to play bass without fiddling around and just doing the frickin' job that makes people happy. Now, if you don't know, as a guitar player who watches pedal videos, who Lee Sklar is, which is very unlikely, I would assume. There might be people
No,
somewhere
I'm sure there's people out there.
Okay. You probably do own, I'm gonna say at least 10, maybe more like 50 albums that he's played on, unless you're into Northern Norwegian Swedish grindcore metal, then you probably only own 2 that he's played on.
I actually done 5 though.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So who knows?
Who knows? So it's funny when you see these, you know, studio, I'm gonna say legends.
No, say it, say it.
Studio legends. I'm a big fan of Tim Pierce.
Yeah, I love Tim.
At the moment that I discovered him, which was only a few years ago, and started watching him, I'm like, okay, this is how it's done.
Exactly. He's one of the best there is.
I've done a lot of, for my own, I slipped into kind of a record contract with a prog label, and then I did albums with Dream Theater people, and you know, noodly stuff.
Yeah.
And I watched him, and I'm like, anyone can play every single part that he plays. They're very simple part, except the solo stuff, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
But he plays them right there, first time, with the right sound, with the, he hears it in his head before he touches the strings, and everything is just perfect. And the layering is what matters. And he sits there, I always say, at his grandma's desk.
I know.
I don't know how much money that guy must have, but he still has this old wooden desk.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And this type of player, not your noodly kind of shred master, is...
Which is also valid. I mean, that whole thing. But Tim is another thing. Tim is another animal.
It's what fascinates me. And I go in, I'm the kind of person that I read you're not very fond of. I consider myself a producer. Mm-hmm. But I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you have a problem with the kind of producers that don't really know what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, I mean, it runs the gamut. Sometimes producers are all very different. Some producers are very accomplished musicians. Mm-hmm. When I work with Ron Fair, like when we did Vanessa Carlton's 1,000 Miles, while he was producing, he was sitting there writing all the string charts. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a very accomplished musician. Other producers don't really know that much, but they have a good taste for song. Mm-hmm. Others have friendships with the musicians, so they know the right guys to hire, and then they sit back and let the musicians make their... So it runs the whole gamut. But some of them are a pain in the ass, and they're imposing themselves on the date to justify being there, and they only cause problems.
And they just say, I'm the producer, and they say something even though it might not have to be changed, just to be important.
Just to be involved.
Yeah. I try to be the kind of producer, I studied arranging. Mm-hmm. And sound design at Berkeley, so I have a little bit of the technical side, which isn't really, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the notes.
Yeah.
And putting together the pieces of the puzzle. That is my thing. Once it's produced, I don't even care anymore. It's how it all comes together, and especially how the bass part comes together, because he can go in and just, you know, have that pedal tone lying there and have so much power.
Yeah.
And the pieces of the puzzle is what I'm interested in, and I can relate to the musicians, I hope, relatively well, because I play guitar, I play bass well enough so I can take it from the bass player and say, no, try to do it like this.
Yeah, that's great.
And build some respect before I say do this, and then I say, well, he's not just saying this to be important, he's saying this because he actually
You validated yourself to them. Yeah.
And that's just my thing. I love to sit in the studio and see the pieces of the puzzle come together.
That's great.
And for me, the bass is essential. Yeah. Of course, when it comes to Norwegian death grind, it's a little bit different, because there the bass pretty much cover.
It's everything. It's really everything.
Well, it plays in unison with the 8-string guitars, an octave lower. I mean, that's what you do in death grind. But I mean, come on, he knows.
Yeah.
But
It's more about bodily fluids, blood and urine
yes,
and things.
more
like that.
here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where the fuck am I?
No, you're sitting right
No,
there.
no, yeah, I'm just
Jesus,
trying. I
there's
was
Alzheimer's
going
already.
somewhere, and then Lee Sklar got me
No,
over
it's okay,
here,
sorry.
and I'm
I
thinking
won't
about
say anything.
no, this
No.
was kind of your freaking job. But what I love is when someone comes with a chord progression,
Yeah.
and it might singer-songwriter stuff or whatever, in pop, it might be simple, and I go, okay, that's good, but let's reharmonize it. Let's play with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great function in Cubase for a while now called the chord track, where you pretty much just like put the chord symbols, and you can have them be played by a piano, whatever. And then you can have a synth bass track that follows. So very, very quickly, you get a sketch of what it's going to sound like.
Yeah.
The first thing we do is we smack down the chords that he plays, and then we play with it. And we say, okay, what about an A minor instead of C? What an F? And we can play with
Yeah.
it. And we can very precisely, quickly reharmonize the whole song to make it interesting. And mostly what I do is, last chorus, let's have the bass do something different.
Yeah.
And how does it, I have so many questions, but let's start with
No,
that.
we're here.
How does it work? You come in a session, and do you have the freedom to just, I mean, you probably do, but do you get, say, okay, here's the bass part, we have a rough track, do this. Or if you said, hey, what if I just do a pedal tone here for half the song?
Well, the thing that you have to understand is that everything is predicated on a specific project or even a specific song. So when I show up, sometimes I show up and they have nothing sketched out.
Okay.
Maybe the guitar player, the artist, will come in and play guitar, and then we just start building. They have no preconception. Sometimes
Right.
you come in, everything's written out note for note that they want. Other times you come in, there's just a chord sheet, or if I'm working in Nashville, it's just number sheets and things like that. If they have specific ideas, what they want, if they've written it out, I feel my obligation as the bass player that they've hired is to play that performance. Now, if I think I could do it better or differently, then I ask them, let's try a track now, let me try something else. And unless we're under terrible time constraints, they usually say, well, let's try it. And sometimes they'll go, I kind of like what I had because they've lived with their part. And I go,
been
that's
there.
cool,
Yeah.
that's cool. And otherwise they'll go, man, I love that, let's go that way.
Drugs.
Well, yeah, that's lemon head or something.
I have a cup.
Okay. No, it's but it changes for me every single day. Every time I walk into a new session, it's a new set of circumstances, which is both the challenge of my job and sometimes the terror of my job. Because I've walked into sessions that you go, oh man, we've got our work cut out for us today. The music's incredibly complicated and they haven't prepared anything ahead of time. So you really have to kind of pull up your boots and get to work. Other times you walk in, it's the easiest, beautiful stuff, and you just kind of fall into it. But you have to take it on a song by song and project by project. So there's no set rule to what you're going to go through when you go in the studio.
That would have been one of my questions. You've probably done it all. You've done the go in the studio and play it live.
Yeah.
You've done, and everything is already there, including the vocals, and everything's done, and
Yeah.
you're the last one in the chain,
Yeah.
possibly. I'm always surprised when I see the videos Tim Pierce does, and there's vocals, but they didn't have the guitars. So, it's probably a scratch vocal. I would assume
Yeah, usually
the
that
vocal
is.
comes last. Do you ever record a track and the vocals are not on there?
Well, like you said, like me being the last thing, that almost never happens. I'm generally one of the first things that go on. I'll be there before Tim is there. And it's a drag. But we're doing more and more ensemble work now. There's more and more band recording.
Really?
For years, I was spending all my time going to guys' houses and just overdubbing bass on their Pro Tools rigs. And a lot of times they had like either a click track or some rudimentary drum machine. This even goes to Phil Collins. When we'd record with Phil, we never cut as a band. It was one guy at a time. Phil would lay down like a drum machine track and then block out some chords sometimes with keyboard. And generally the first guy in would be me. When I cut Another Day in Paradise, I was the first instrument on that record. Then
Okay.
after I left, Daryl Sturmer arrived and did the guitar. towards the end is when Phil went in and replaced the synth drums that he had programmed with his real drums. I think Brad Cole came in and did the keyboard. So a lot of times I'm there early. I have no idea what's going to be going. I haven't heard any vocal. I have no idea what the melodic structure is going to be.
Okay.
So it becomes a lot of guesswork. You're anticipating what things are going to be. And through experience, you have a pretty ballpark idea, just judging by sometimes even just chord changes, kind of what the song's going to be like. There's other times where I've worked on records, and then when I finally hear it finished, I go, if I would have known that's what was going to be going on, I wouldn't have never played that part. But it's too late at that point. So you run the whole gamut of experiences.
Without the vocals, I would think you probably play it safe. You try to play it safe because...
Yeah. Or you overplay, not knowing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, to me, if the vocal isn't there, you're only playing chords. You're not emotionally connected to the song with the lyric and where the song's going to be going. Because sometimes we've played things and they're really up, and then you hear the lyric and you go, it's about the guy's dad dying, you know. And you're like, dude, what I wouldn't have never done that if.
Yes.
So, but that's out of your control.
As a producer,
it's the producer.
I always say I want to hear. They come in with like a recording, and like I want to hear the whole thing recorded in the practice room, so I get an idea, and we talk about where it's going and what you want to do. And I do a lot of drum programming, but realistic drum programming, because most of the times on the level that I work on, the drummers are not studio guys, and it wouldn't work. So the programming sounds a lot better.
It's much more accurate to get the work done, and then you can spend the time with them later to do it.
And I always say, well, the vocal is the most important thing. What if we decide, because the vocal is fluid, we can, that's the most important thing. What if I decide that instead of starting on the 2 in the chorus, I want to pick up? And all of a sudden, your drum fills completely clash with the vocal. And I want to have control as a producer over especially the drums until the very last moment, until the vocals are set in stone. And most of the time we go in and we reduce the complexity of a fill. Maybe the bass is doing a fill which really didn't work there, and I take it out and we redo it. So that, but if you're one of the first people, that fluidity isn't.
You have no,
there.
but like I do a lot of Japanese albums, and generally the singer comes in, they haven't written any of their lyrics yet, but they know kind of melodically what they're, so they're just humming along with us, but at least it gives us a direction and a concept of how they're hearing it, so we know where to leave space or where we can fill and do things. So, but like I keep saying, it harkens back to every project is individual, so you can't go in with any rules, because every day it's got to be fluid. You have to be just respond to
and
the
you
moment.
react. Which project was, I was going to say not your bailiwick, but I'm not Scottish, so funny word that I had to look up. How do you say it? Which project was the one where you said this is? I'm a little bit scared of that because it's way out of my ballpark.
Well, so far, most haven't been out of my ballpark. I've been lucky with that. Some are, I did an album a couple of years ago with an Italian kind of fusion guitarist named Ciro Manna, Ciromanna, and it was, we did it at Simon Phillips' studio, and Simon was playing drums. And this guy showed up, and we had like 3 days to cut like 10 songs. And a lot of it he wanted me doing unison with him, and it was all odd time signature. There was not one piece of paper, there was nothing. So I mean, it would like really was a lot of work to get to. It was a cool project, but I just kept saying to him, man, if we ever do this again, at least come in with a sketch so I have some place to start from. Because this was like sweating bullets. There's been other times where I've done a project, and there might be a couple of tracks that I didn't feel I was the right guy for, so I would call somebody else to come down to the studio. We did a project with a guy, I'm trying to remember his name, it's been a few years now. I can't remember his name, but it was Ahmed Erdogan was producing the thing. And they sort of wanted it to be like an upright feel on it, but they weren't sold on that. And I have a very old Washburn AB45 acoustic bass that we stripped the frets out of and made it fretless, and it suddenly came to life. And it sounds like a weird like a weird upright. So I said, let's try this. And when I played it, they went, oh man, that's great. We love that. But we got to the last 2 tracks on the album, and I thought, this isn't really right. This really needs upright on this. And my upright was a piece of crap and stuff. And plus, don't play it as off. I learned on upright. That was my first, how I started bass. But I got away from it for so many years. But John Patitucci still lived in Los Angeles, and John was a really good friend of mine. So I called him up, and he wasn't doing anything. So I said, you come down and play it on this. And I told him, my clock just ended. I'm just going to hang out now. And John came down and did the last 2 tracks. And it was great. So that was out of my comfort zone, but it didn't affect the project.
But that's what a professional musician does.
Yeah,
being open about what they can and cannot do.
Well, also, yeah, I'm aware of my limitations. I've had a lot of hand injuries and stuff, so I'm not a slapper popper. I don't ever do that. And so if I know there's a project that's really going to require that kind of chop on it, I've got friends in LA that eat that stuff for breakfast.
I really hope I just caught Lee Sklar in a lie. I really hope, let me find out if I can actually get that happening. Because I went on Wikipedia, and there's probably no place where you can see all the albums he played on.
Yeah.
And they had a selected discography, and I have like 2,500 CDs. And I said, okay, which ones can I quickly grab on the way here to listen to some things? And I grabbed Rush Street, Richard Marx.
Oh, God, yeah, that was a great record.
And because I was prepared, Lee Sklar plays very little. I heard you say, you know, a whole note's your favorite thing. And I'm listening to this album and like, that's not what I expected, because it was much busier than I thought. It absolutely fits the record. The guitars are more
well, the
simple.
song and the record is what counts. I mean,
Yes.
if I have to play busy, what I do is when I listen to a song, the first thing when I come in the studio and they start playing the song is I set my bass down and listen to the song.
And imagine
and
what
you just go, what does the song want from me? What can I do without imposing myself on the song? Where some guys sit there and they're immediately trying to figure out, how can I show off on this song? If it's whole notes, fine. I mean, like when I did Spectrum with Billy Cobham, you know, I mean, I had to dig in on that. There was heads to learn and all that stuff. And we did the whole album in 2 days, and it's basically a take of each song. I think the most we did was 2 takes on any song. With Richard, when I worked with Hall & Oates and all these people, if a song demands me really dig in and be all over the place, but to me, that's only there if the song needs it. If the song just wants you to play whole notes and half notes, I find where guys sometimes look at that, they go, I'm better than that. Well, maybe you got chops,
But that's
that
not your
doesn't mean
job.
shit.
The song is your job.
Yeah, the song is my job, and I was a rock player up till when I met James Taylor, and I was in bands that were aggressive hard rock playing bands, and I met him and suddenly had to think in a whole different way when I started working with him, because it was the advent of the singer-songwriter movement. And suddenly I was sitting here with all this space, and I'm enjoying that too. So, I mean, I can play the whole gamut, but my education, really professional education, has been predicated on songs. And this is what I'm trying to emphasize in my clinics here, because I walk by all these rooms and I see everybody sitting here. Nobody's playing a song. I'm telling them, I go on YouTube, I go on all the bass sites on Facebook. Everything that's posted by a guy showing their stuff is sitting there going like this. And not one person sitting there playing a groove, they're not playing a tone, they're not playing a song. And I'm sitting there going, so one of the songs I tell them about, I say, one of my favorite songs to play along with, just to get my head straight, is Rubber Band Man by the Spinners, and it's Bob Babbitt's bass part. And it's just the most beautifully crafted part. And that's the world I live in. I want to hear a song, and I want to hear a part that just sits in that song and lifts everything up in it without imposing itself. You know, sit back. Every once in a while you can throw something in and people go, ooh, that's cool.
But that's the one
a
spot
special
that's cool
moment.
then.
Yeah.
If the whole thing is filled with notes, especially from a bass players, it's, who said that? Carl Beatty. He taught at Berkeley, I think he's still there. He said Tower Records was still in Boston.
Yeah.
Huge, that was a CD store. CDs are these round things that you cannot fucking copy off the internet. I get a little bit.
I could get really passionate about this.
Yes. Just be in the room with me when someone says, oh, I downloaded that, I stole that. They get a 45-minute lecture and I get loud. So anyway, CDs, Tower records, blah, blah, blah. 2 or 3 stories full of CDs. I spent thousands there during my time at Berkeley. And he said, go over there, you will find a whole level of the store called vocal. You will not find any solo snare albums. You will probably find some solo bass albums. And I have some of those. I have one Partitucci, which was actually a very beautiful album. But that does not get sold as much as, you know, a country CD. I mean, people want to hear songs, people want to hear vocals, and it's my job as a producer and guitar player, your job as bass players and everyone to just make the song shine. And it's a fight sometimes as a producer in general to get people to understand. I think this is why this whole studio player community, especially in Los Angeles, is actually relatively small.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the same names everywhere. Okay?
Yeah.
You see your name a lot of times.
Yeah.
And Nathan East. You see the same people, and when you see interviews with them, it is always, well, I show up on time, I bring my stuff, I have no strings, it's in tune. You would think these things are
You're
normal.
a professional. You treat your job as a profession.
And when they say, well, I don't like that, you don't throw a fit, I don't think I could do that. I'd get pissy.
See, my mantra is everything I do is etched in mud. Because, man, if you don't like it, it can just roll over and let's start again. You know, I mean, I'm not the do-with-all for bass. I'm thrilled when I come in and a guy's got ideas. Because he'll maybe throw something out that I would never even have thought of, and I go, that's a great idea. let me try that. I've done things when I worked with Jude Cole, who I loved. He's another great artist. And we were in the studio, and there was one track, and he had played bass on the demo. But he had a crappy old bass at home, and it was a thing. And it was a cool part, and we started to work on it, and I said, why don't you just play my bass? It's got a better tone than the thing you had, but you already know the part. So why don't you just do it? And he did it, and it was great. I mean, it was better for the project. I didn't need to play it. So
not having an ego is definitely...
You can't have an ego.
That's the way to do it. And
I mean, I don't have an ego, but I have confidence.
well, that's the difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
We've talked about what was kind of the thing that was a little bit out of the ballpark for you. Is there any style? I mean, you're definitely firmly rooted in singer-songwriter, pop rock, you know, that world. Is there something that you would say, you know what, you have done the Swedish grindcore, northern Swedish grindcore, but something where you say, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing that. I know you've said, and that's not what I mean, you said you've never played with Glassman.
Elton?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elton.
No, Glassman. I mean,
Glassman,
that's immediately who you mean. I mean, it's like Roy Orbison is dead.
You said you've never played with him, and you would.
I love Elton's music. I love Elton's music, especially back to like Tumbleweed Connection and the really early stuff. Because I knew Gus Dudgeon really well, who was producing all that stuff. I didn't have that. I'd love to work with him.
But then we're still kind of in that.
You're in the genre.
In the comfort zone. But I really mean like, you know, do a mariachi album or Southern Polish polka.
Well, see, the thing is, I do all those. Okay. I mean, I just finished doing an album with Il Volo, the Spanish tenors. We're doing Steve Perry's Christmas album right now. Okay. I've done Alfie Boe, who sang, he was Jean Valjean in Les Mis in London. One of my favorite genres to play in, though, I was in a band in the 90s called Barefoot Servants, and it was like ZZ Top meets Hendrix.
Okay.
And that's really, if I only had to pick one thing to play, that's what I would be playing. Not the singer-songwriter stuff. I like just like bar band rock and roll. That's where I grew up.
Okay. You recorded that stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
Because now I got to go and check that out.
Yeah, no, Barefoot Servants. And John Butcher was the singer, guitar player, who's a monster. He had a group called John Butcher's Axis in Boston in the day, and they were like the biggest band out of Boston. Ben Schultz was the other guitar player, and Ray Brinker was the drummer. It is aggressive, kick-ass rock and roll. Okay. I love playing that stuff. So I go to work and I play everything from Christian rock to reggae to waltzes. I do orchestral work. I'm a hired hand. I show up and I just play what I get hired for.
So if Metallica called and said, "Hey,
would play
Rob just broke his hand. Lee, can you do it?"
If they called me, I would shed the stuff down and go do it. That's how I ended up out with Toto, because I was doing Steve Lukather's solo album.
Which we listened to on the way here.
Oh, okay. And then they were getting ready to leave in a week to tour, and he was so ill at that point that they were going to cancel the tour. And he said, "Look, I know you've only got like 5 days, but can you learn the show?" And we went out and spent the next like 8 months on the road touring that stuff, and I loved it. Because I'd known those guys before they even formed the band.
Oh, okay.
So for me, it was
They were all
like
studio
family.
players, right?
Yeah, they were like my family. I saw them all the time. I've known Steve Lukather since he was 19 years old. But you know, I love jumping right into that genre, and then I'm happy to go out, and I'm working right now, and I've been touring all year with Judith Owen, who's married to Harry Shearer, who's Derek Smalls in Spinal Tap, and does all the voices on The Simpsons.
We just talked about, he doesn't know it.
No.
We just talked about Big Bottom earlier.
Yeah.
That's, I mean...
It's one of the definitive bass.
That is the definitive bass song.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen that movie 15 times, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. No,
but in Germany, it's not so big because it would get dubbed. And if you dub that into German...
It doesn't make any sense. It loses the whole impact.
Absolutely.
Well, it becomes like they're a real band, which they're all great players, but it's not a parody anymore. It takes on a different thing.
And I love the songs. I bought the second album, which had a lot of big players on it. I love A Mighty Wind.
Yeah.
They write great songs, these guys.
Well, they're great. They're great artists on their own right.
Yeah.
So when they're doing these parodies, it's almost like not a parody because they are.
I mean, they're not standing there faking the instruments. It's like they're actually playing, and I can buy it, and so it's really fun.
So Judith, who's married to Harry, she and I have been touring all year, and right now we're getting ready to go back out, and she plays piano and sings, and she's Welsh. She's amazing, and it's just she and I, just the two of us out there. And so I can go from like Phil Collins and Toto and all that. I'm really happy then suddenly in this other thing with just the two of us playing. Just call me. I go to work. That's it. You know, I'm not.
You probably wouldn't be happy to just be in a band and continuously play the same things.
The only time I'm jealous of guys that are just in a band is all they have to do is learn one set of songs, and that's all they really have to do. I mean, Bill Wyman only had to learn Stone songs and do Stone songs. He never really had to do anything else unless he wanted to. Flea just has to do Chili Peppers, and it's done, you know. I mean, I've recorded somewhere between 22 and 25,000 songs in my career, and I've done over 2,600 albums. I'm proud of that, but it's exhausting. You know, every time somebody calls me, I have to learn and create new material. Where there would be nice just to kind of hang out with your friends, write some songs, release your album, go out on tour, take the next year off if you want. I go to work every day.
But for me, exactly that is the creating new things, because when you play the same song over again, okay, you know now this is going to come, and you play maybe, I don't know, a C on an F or whatever, and that's kind of cool if you have that pedal. But that first time when you try in the studio and things come together.
Oh yeah.
For me, that's a magical moment.
That's all magic. That's your lifeblood.
And I help out his band on guitar, and I don't play live pretty much at all. So we've had 3 gigs now, and it was fun. I mean, it was fun for me to put together a live rig and stand on stage. It's totally different, it's great. Yeah. But being in the studio with their vocalist and finding the right guitar sound, the right chorus, the right delay, and then putting it together, and you play very little. I love working with delays to get things and not do a lot. And then it just comes together. Yeah. And all of a sudden, okay, that was awesome. What just happened? That is the moment for me. Yeah,
there are two different worlds.
Yes.
I mean, I love the process in the studio of creating things. Like one of the examples I'm showing is when I did an album with Vince Gill down in Nashville, and they were going to do a string date afterwards. And I said, well, let me try this. And I ended up doing a lot of double stop, fretless stuff, washed in a little bit of echo, and it was all in the back, and it took the entire space of what they were thinking of strings for, so they blew off the string date because they already had this atmosphere. Awesome. You know, when you get to do that, the studio is fabulous for that. The thing I like about live is if I go, hit that note, it's done. Now you move on. In the studio, you go, you could spend 2 weeks fucking around with that one note. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to do this. Let's tweak it. Let's move it here. Let's do that. And I'm just going, really? So I like the immediacy of live. I like performance. I like going out there. You throw it all out there, and the minute you're done. You move on. But also, one of the things we always would say to ourselves, and this was with James Taylor, I mean, like I played Fire and Rain, which only has like 4 chords in it ultimately. I must have played that 10,000 times. Even when I'm playing at the 10,000th time, there's somebody in that audience that's hearing it for the first time.
Yes.
And that's who you play for. So I've never been bored. I can play songs over and over, and I never get tired of it. And I hardly ever, even if they only have 4 chords, I never play them the same way. There's always some little thing. I've never gotten blasé about any of this stuff. I'm as excited today working almost 46 years later from when I first started as I was the first day I walked in a studio.
I was just going right there because the way hearing you talk is you've done this for a long time. Not saying you're old.
No,
Not saying Lee Sklar is older. Not saying that.
No, I dyed. This is really black.
Yes,
I just did the white.
He does this
for today.
deliberately with very special products, which link right here.
There's a pedal for this.
There's a pedal for the Lee Sklar beer. I'm buying that.
Okay.
No, but you've done this a while, and you've done so many things, but you're still passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though people think when I say, well, it's a job. I do a job, and I try to do a service, that they think the passion's not there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is, I mean, hearing you talk, you're passionate about so many different styles of music,
Yeah.
and working with so many people. And yes, you have to be professional. You have to show up on time. You have to know your shit, but you got to still be passionate about it.
Yeah, bottom line is, it's your job. This is how I pay my bills. This is how I live. So it's a job. It's a profession. But it's also the kind of thing that had I gone into another profession, I'd still be doing this, just with friends, playing bars, playing clubs, bar mitzvahs. I still go out with friends. I had a friend call me, and one of his friends was turning 50 years old. And we put together a band. It was Vinnie Colaiuta, myself, Mike Finnegan. We went and played in the basement at the guy's house for his birthday party. I mean, we like playing. I go out all the time. I play. And when I'm out with Judith Owen, we were doing pubs in England, and I'm sitting there on a stage in a pub. It's like 45 people in the place. We're having a ball, and guys would come up to me and go, "Last time I saw you, it was Wembley Stadium. What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm playing music."
I'm having fun.
Yeah, I'm having
I loved
a
it.
good
Yesterday we walked, Paul saw it too. We walked past the area where they all hang out to get away from everyone.
Yeah.
And you know, the VIP area. And I saw you hanging out just like we would around a laptop, and you showing Rhonda Smith, some Japanese, Chinese girl
Japanese
playing like amazing. And these typical, you see them all the time on Facebook, look at this little kid play. You get excited about this stuff just the same. It's not like, okay, you've seen it a million times. You get, hey, Rhonda, check this out. And I was like, this is very, well, down to earth, very cool, because you're still passionate about this. And it's not like I've seen it a million times. No, this is still interesting.
Even if I've seen it a million times, it's still, I love it. I mean, you think of so many things you could do in this world that wouldn't bring you happiness. It would pay the bills, and maybe pay you a shitload more money than this pays. Because I'm a blue collar worker. I just go to work every day. I don't get those big checks like these guys do from their billion-selling albums and all that stuff. When I go to work is when I make a living, and I make enough to pay my bills and save a little bit, and I'm happy. My wife and I, we don't go without, but I'm not driving around in a $150,000 car or
Who
anything.
needs that?
I drive in a 14-year-old pickup truck. I'm happy with that. That doesn't matter. The thing that I love is I walk in a studio and I look over and there's Jim Keltner or there's Vinnie Colaiuta playing drums, or one of these guys, John Robinson. I look over and I see Tim Pierce, or I see Dean Parks, or these guys. I go, I'm so blessed to be a part of this community of musicians, and every one of those guys is a great guy. So the hang is great. Generally, the music's great. Even if sometimes people come in with not great music, by the time they leave, we've crafted it into something that is substantial. Or there's times where you go, nobody's ever going to hear this. This is not that good. But at the end of the day, we got to hang. The person's left happy.
And who needs money if you can make music and survive?
Yeah.
Thanks to you guys, by the way, I'm here at Warwick because you made the channel what it is. It's tiny, but let's make it bigger. That's what my girlfriend always says.
That's what we're here
actually.
for. That's what we're here
My
for.
girlfriend always says that.
She has hopes and, and desires.
There's pills. Anyway,
there's a pedal for that.
You know, I mean, I get to play with pedals all day. I get to talk to Lee Sklar and a lot of other cool people here. And without you guys, that wouldn't happen. What do I need money for? I get pedals from the companies. Hey, play around with this. I sit in my studio with good coffee all day, which we're still looking for here. There's a special.
There's a couple of places here, but he charges for that, I think.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to fork over the money. And what else do we need? I mean, I'm not rich. People look at my room and they think, oh, look at all the guitars. Yeah. No, I mean, I work for these and I get them from companies. But what else? I don't need money if I get to do what I'm doing.
We're so blessed. We're so lucky, man. I sit there doing this every day, just going, man. And then when those special moments come, like I did B.B. King's 80th birthday album, and I'm sitting there as close as you are to me, and I'm sitting with B.B., and right here was Bobby Blue Bland, and I'm just going, how the fuck did I end up here?
That's what we've been thinking all week. We've been running around like looking at each other in our freaky deaky blue shirts, like, how the fuck did we get here? Well, and we're like hoping no one notices that we really don't belong here. Don't tell anyone.
I feel the same way. I come here and I look around and I see all my heroes, all these bass players, and the thing that, to get back to what you were talking about with Steve, what Hans Peter has created here is this community that's I've never seen in my whole career. To get to, you go to the NAMM show or you go to some music mess and so you see players walking around, but it's not this environment where you can sit and have dinner and talk and hang. And I sit there and I just going, man, this is so amazing, and especially this weekend is going to be insane, because everybody from Abe Laboriel to Billy Sheehan to Bunny Brunel, all these cats are coming in. Marco Mendoza, there's a ton of bass players coming for Saturday, and I just sit back and I kind of go, what am I doing here? You know, it's like.
On Friday, I'm a big Mr. Big fan since I was and I'm going to talk to Billy Sheehan. No clue what I'm going to ask him, but hey, I'm not a bass player, but I'm going to talk to freaking Billy Sheehan. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to Phil X, which is going to be crazy. And we have to tone down the silliness. I heard he's very silly, and we don't do silly here. No, we do German serious. No silly. I said no silly. No, it's gonna be great.
But like I was saying, the environment that Hans Peter has created with this camp, and this is, I did the first two, and then I was supposed to be here last year, but Phil Collins decided to spend 3 weeks rehearsing to see if he was going to come out of retirement. Mm-hmm. So, and it was right when this was going on, so I had to bail. So I was glad to be back this year. But every time I come here, I just sit there, and I'm happy just to sit in the corner of a room and just watch. And I love going to everybody else's
Thank you for pointing that out. That's one more thing I was going to point out. This guy actually, we look at some of these things and we're like, well, it's kind of rudimentary what they're teaching. Okay, and we walk by, we have shit to do, so we can't really take in the classes. But wherever you go, this guy is sitting in the back and looking at his peers teaching people bass. And he's taking in the classes.
Well, you can never not learn. I don't know everything. I'm still trying. I'll get it right one of these days.
I get so much shit wrong in my videos you wouldn't believe. My first fuzz pedal, I didn't know what G-E-N-I-S-I meant. Germanium, silicon, I don't know. Yeah. So I just flip the switch and describe the sounds as how I do it. And then people commented and explained, not in a bad way, how you fucking didn't know. And I learn on my channel every day. I get pedal train pedal boards, and I'm like, how do you get a power supply under here? I have no idea. They're the flat ones, the new ones. Okay, I'm like, if you have to put it on top, you have no space. What do you do? So comment comes in, get the Seahawks DC5, it fits under. I'm like, hey, cool. So I at the company, next week I got it. And now I can show in a video that. So I learn with you guys and take this to heart. You never know everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, but you don't.
If you think you know everything, you don't know shit.
Yes, exactly. Isn't that Socrates?
No, that's one last solo album cover. One thing you'll never hear from me is a solo album either. I get asked all the time, when are you going to do a solo album? Never. I have nothing to say as a solo artist. It's like you were talking about all, going and seeing like the bass solo. I mean, for the most part, I check out all these solo albums. the playing's amazing, the writing's is shit.
Yeah.
No, but they don't really have anything to say, or they're just doing a pop tune and they're just playing, their version of the lyric. I'd rather listen to the whole. I mean, I don't get moved that much. Every once in a while, you hear one and you go, "Oh, Jesus!" But for them, I'm never going to do it. But if somebody calls me and says, "I want to do an album," I'm there. I mean, and I'll spend the last Sunday. This friend of mine in Northern California, she's like an kind of folky artist, like the early '70s stuff, and she called me up, and I went into a studio with a friend of mine at his house, and I did 12 tracks for her on that Sunday. Just laid bass on everything. And that's where I'm happy. That's the zone. Just put me in there, give me songs. I don't care what the genre is, but just give me songs to play, and I'm really a happy camper.
Do you ever do stuff at your house?
I don't have anything set up.
Nothing?
I keep thinking I should. I have some Apogee stuff there. I'm just busy enough. When I get home, I look around and I go, God, I got to do yard work. I want to go work on it. I want to play with the dogs, and I hang with my wife, and do all these other things. So I'm playing so much. But I have a couple of friends that have good home studios, and they're good musicians. So I call them up and I say, if I can get some money for them, a couple of $100 to do a thing. Otherwise, we go, well, let's just play, and then we'll go get some pizza or something and hang out. And most of the time we spend talking and bullshitting, and it's great. So.
Bullshitting is silliness. We don't embrace the silliness here. No silly.
There's
no silly.
No. Then I have to leave now.
We don't do silly. This is Germany. We are very serious.
Okay.
We do
I spent a lot of time in Germany, but I'll tell you, this was Phil Collins' stronghold in Europe, so we spent a lot of time in Germany.
And no silliness, right?
There was never any silliness. The few times I tried to get silly, there was some people.
People clapping very nicely, like
they came in and asked for my papers.
Because you were too silly?
I was too silly, so I stopped being silly when I come here.
I understand. And then people going like clapping on 1 and 3.
Yeah. So then we just skip a beat, and then once they realize they're on 2 and 4, they stop and they get back to 1 and 3.
Do you hate that when they do that?
Oh, I don't give a shit.
Really?
I mean, it is. I worked on a movie years ago. I was in the band in the movie, and there was stuff where we were having the crowd clap along, and all the extras were out there. And
the crowd is in crowd, like girl or crowd?
No, this was in Los Angeles, not crowd. Crowd, C-R-O-W-D. So we were standing on the side when they were filming the audience, showing them where 2 and 4 is, and then we would stop. And within 2 bars, they were back on 1. It's impossible. Yet the thing that's funny about this, everybody talks about that, but look at like real traditional black gospel choirs. A lot of them clap on 1 and 3.
Really?
Yeah. They just make it feel better when they're doing it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not that kind of real stiff. But 1 and 3, it's almost like a shtick. It's like a parody that you just sort of laugh about. You look out in the audience, but what bothers me is when you look out there and they're going, and it's done no 1 and 3, no 2 and 4. I don't know what they're hearing. I mean, they are in a zone.
They're hearing this. They popped something.
Yeah, there's they just had a synaptic overload of some kind, and they're like in this other zone.
Hey, you're still making them happy with your music.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
I wouldn't care what they're doing out there as long as there's. But I'll tell you, we've gone on the road, I've sound checks for like 3 ushers in the place that have been some of the best shows we've ever played. It doesn't really require an audience. You're playing music, and sometimes the only thing that scares me is we got to a sound check and it is burning, and we go, oh God, it would just blow our whole wad, and then the show's going to happen. And then the sound's great when the hall's empty sometimes, it's got that nice fun. And then suddenly when the audience comes in, the room gets too dead, and you go, oh, it's not as much fun as it was before. So every day's an adventure. It's all different. And that's what you embrace. It keeps it interesting.
What else can I add to that?
Certainly no frivolity or any...
No silliness.
No silliness.
Apparently you do this. It's a bass player thing. I don't know.
It's a stinky finger.
That's what it is.
I know what it is. I have almost 10,000 pictures of people doing that. I have to get you guys before I leave here.
He's a dirty man.
Yeah.
Very silly.
But not today.
Not
while I'm in Germany.
No.
As soon as I get to the airport and I cross the border.
Silliness. Then it's silliness.
The stewardess will probably lock me in the bathroom.
Lee Sklar, what else can I say? I hope you had fun. And
I did.
Seriously?
No.
No. We're gonna talk about bass players, which is totally uninteresting, you guys, but I don't give a flying fuck. I don't want to talk to them.
Some of these bass players play like guitar players, so you'll love them. And they all use pedals. I just can't see all the way to the floor, so it's confusing.
Is it the beard? Is it in the way?
No, it's just I'm old. My eyes are fucked. I mean,
suboptimal.
Yeah.
Yes, suboptimal.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Lee Sklar.
It's my pleasure.
Go away now. Bye bye.
Go get a life.